Mercedes are making a comeback that everyone thought would not be possible this season. Not only did they make a switch in technical leadership mid-season, they also committed to a switch in aerodynamic concept, which is yielding great results. Now the Silver Arrows are building up on that momentum, revealing more striking upgrades for the W14 at Silverstone and Spa. The team is not stopping there, as news has emerged about Mercedes making immense changes at Brixworth, where the high-performance powertrain of Mercedes is manufactured. The emerging picture from this is Mercedes are making massive strides to be on par with Red Bull sooner rather than later. Want to find out what really is happening back at Brackley and Brixworth? Then stick around till the end of this video. Mercedes took the gamble of making a mid-season concept change, as they did realize the narrow sidepods concept is not paying enough dividends to be competitive at the front. While many thought that to be a risky move, the Silver Arrows executed it perfectly. Monaco was not a perfect representation of how much improved the W14 was, but Barcelona and Montreal were. The team achieved a double podium result at Barcelona, where the W14 was comfortably the second fastest car on the grid. Many of Mercedes' weak points on medium and high-speed corners were fixed, giving them a massive advantage around the Spanish circuit. But many called it a one-off result for the German racing stable, and named the Canadian Grand Prix to be where Mercedes would see a downfall in performance. While the Silver Arrows themselves did downplay expectations for the Canadian race, pointing out the track's slow speed and high traction nature to be playing against the W14's strengths. The team was able to produce a better than expected result, again standing on the podium on merit. That result at Canada cemented the upgraded W14's pace on the grid and on the competitive order as a close match for the second fastest car on the grid. The Canadian circuit is comprised of slow-speed high-traction corners and long straights, so a car to go fast around that track will need great engine power, high efficiency and good rear-end traction. Seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton talked about this after the Canadian Grand Prix, as he added, "Firstly, it's quite an honor to be up there with two world champions," he said. "I was really excited to be third and just try to be in that mix, but unfortunately, we just didn't have the pace today. We knew this weekend this wouldn't be our strongest circuit, as we struggle in the lower speed corners particularly, and that's really where I was losing to Fernando and Max just on traction out of turn 2 and pretty much every corner. But we've got a lot of work to do to just add rear downforce to the car and a little bit more efficiency, but we are chipping away." While the W14 at Bahrain was about 0.8 to a second adrift of Red Bull's pace on race day, that has dropped to about 2 to 0.4 if we look at the results from the Spanish and Canadian Grand Prix. With the latest developments, Mercedes have taken a step forwards, jumping Ferrari to cement their position as the third fastest car overall, behind the dominant Red Bull car and slightly behind the Aston Martin car. Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff acknowledged this during the Canadian Grand Prix weekend, as he did mention that Verstappen is still having an easier time at the front of the grid. "For us, we didn't expect to perform here in Canada, because how the car DNA is at the moment is more for the high-speed corners, so it's encouraging not so far away. But one must not forget that Max is cruising in the front. I think that the margin is still too big to really be thinking that Max is under pressure. I don't know how much it was this race, maybe 0.2 a lap or so, but still far off." While Aston Martin reckons that with its newest upgrades at Canada, the MR23 is on par with the RB19 on simulations. Engineers back at Brackley reckon that they are just one huge upgrade away from disturbing Red Bull's dominance this season. The team is preparing for another massive upgrade package at Silverstone, which will be completed with another upgrade package at Spa. For Silverstone, according to AMUS, the Silver Arrows are preparing to introduce a new floor design, updated engine cover design, and updated sidepods design. These upgrades are reportedly aimed at solving the rear-end traction issues of the W14 by improving downforce generation at the rear of the car, and to improve the overall aerodynamic efficiency of the W14, giving them a bit more advantage on the straights. While the Silverstone upgrades will be around the sidepods and the floor, the upgrades brought to Spa will see changes being made to the front and rear wing designs to further improve the aerodynamic performance of the W14. George Russell of Mercedes has tested out these upgrades on the simulator back at the factory and revealed that the upgrades are going to be a massive step in terms of performance. And he reckons that these improvements are way bigger than what the team was able to achieve over the entire winter break. The technical director of Mercedes, James Allison, believes that his team has the potential to close the gap to Red Bull, as he reckons that the dominance of Red Bull is not a God-given gift. To be improving our car week on week, and to hold clear in our heads the target that they don't have a God-given right to be in the lead, they're there by merit, having worked really well. And if we can do as good or better job, we'll be there. That is actually a lot of fun. It's a very, very exhilarating thought once you frame it correctly in your head, and something that we're all tucked into trying to make a reality. Many could wonder, how are Mercedes making such gains in quick succession? Well, we need to keep in mind that this change in direction was well planned before pre-season testing. Mercedes already had new parts in the wind tunnel, while the previous iteration was testing its performance on track. So, this gain has come actually over a couple of months rather than a couple of races. While so much is happening at Brackley, the Silver Arrows are also making a difference at Brixworth, which could potentially hand back the power unit superiority back to them. Mercedes were the only team who nailed a perfect power unit design when these new turbo hybrid powertrains were introduced back in 2014 in part of a massive regulations change. But over the years, other manufacturers have been able to close that gap down. And since the regulations for the power units were tweaked for 2022, alongside the engine freeze which introduced more sustainable E10 fuel, which consists of 10% sustainable ethanol alongside the 90% fossil fuel, Mercedes were not able to nail those requirements at 100%. The Honda-backed Red Bull and Ferrari powertrains were significantly more powerful than the Mercedes power unit, with a rumored difference of about 10 to 12 horsepower. At the present moment, the Red Bull-backed Honda powertrain has the upper hand on the energy store, as the Red Bull's battery deployment is considered to be much better than of its competitors. And the Honda power unit also has a much more reliable turbo on high-altitude tracks. Ferrari whereas has the best power unit when turbo is considered, with its smaller design. But reliability was a major concern for the Italian team, as they were not able to run their engines at maximum power around high-altitude circuits. All of these statistics pushed the Mercedes power unit to be the third best on the grid, and that could slightly explain speed differences in a straight line. But Silver Arrows are desperate to gain back its crown in the power unit area, as the team has made a significant acquisitions in terms of employment at Brixworth. The team are confident about its electrical system supporting its high-performance powertrain. But the team does believe that there is much more room for improvement around the turbos of its engine. And to make those needed improvements, Mercedes has hired two top-level engineers from Ferrari. One of the two engineers is said to be an expert in the design of the combustion chambers of the endothermic unit, while the other is a designer of the aeromechanical component of turbochargers. While we do not know the names of the joining two at Brixworth's high-performance powertrains facility, reports suggest that the two will start working for Mercedes by the end of September this year. Mercedes' attempts to bolster its powertrains division is very interesting, because it has been a small weakness for them over the past 18 months or so. The power unit deficit has not been a significant weakness, as that part lies in the car's aerodynamics. But compared to the dominant engine Mercedes had at the start of 2014, one might wonder just when Mercedes are going to up their game again on this area. Some might question the team's wisdom on choosing Ferrari engineers for this task, as reliability has been a major concern on the Italian engine. But bringing two experienced heads from Ferrari shouldn't be a major concern for the Silver Arrows, as their power unit in total is one of the most reliable on the grid. Nonetheless, Mercedes are looking to claw back some advantage on the engine side, which was and has been a small problem for Mercedes since 2022. Last season, the engine mapping was a problem for Mercedes, which they were able to fix around the season's end, unlocking a decent chunk of performance. A representative of Mercedes' powertrains division revealed that it was a software bottleneck that was resolved by the team, and he implied that could have been down to the new fuel type being used. Engine superiority is very significant in a tight field like in present Formula 1, which was highlighted by Red Bull's Adrian Newey. Newey reckoned that the difference between power units in the present timeline is about 2 to 3%, which is about 2 to 3/10 of lap time difference. When the hybrid regulations first came in, there were huge differences. Mercedes did a fantastic job with their power unit and others were varying levels behind, he said. Now it's closed up, so I would say there's maybe 2% or 3% in the power difference, which is 0.2 to 0.3 seconds difference perhaps, which when the grid is so tight is still a big number. I believe Mercedes is chasing this number with its latest acquisition of personnel for its Brixworth facility, and this would be something that would materialize in terms of lap time in 2024. But what do you guys think? What are your expectations from the latest developments at Brackley and Brixworth? What are your expectations from Mercedes at the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section down below. We'd love to discuss it with you. And on your way down, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified of our future uploads to keep yourselves up to date about the 2023 Formula 1 season.